We are nearing the end of our journey through the book, How to Talk So Kids Will Listen and Listen So Kids Will Talk. And we've covered a variety of topics. The last topic that we're going to begin covering today is how to free your child from playing roles or how to free your child from negative labels. And there are different ways that we can do this. And one of the ways we're going to talk about, or a couple of the ways we're going to talk about today, but one of them is look for opportunities to show the child a new picture of himself or herself. So maybe the child, because of things you've said or that others have said, has seen themselves as kind of a destructive individual. Instead, give them a new label or help them to see themselves in a new way. So as usual, there are comics in the middle of the chapter to illustrate the points they're making. And this first one is of a father talking with his son, and the son is holding like a toy airplane. And the father says, "You've had that toy since you were 3, and it almost looks like new." Now, the father didn't place a label of any kind on the child, but what he did was he called attention to the fact that the child had had this toy for a long time and apparently had taken good care of it. So if the child had thoughts about himself being destructive because of something a parent or somebody else had said to him before, now he could begin to think of himself as somebody who knew how to take care of things that he wanted to take care of. And that's an example of what it means to look for opportunities to show the child a new picture of themselves. Maybe the child has a view of themselves as being a complainer. Again, because maybe something the parent said or another family member or a teacher, maybe a lot of people have called them a complainer. So that's a label, that's a role that they see themselves kind of stuck in. That's who they are. But we can begin to free our children from these roles when we give them a different picture of themselves. So here's a mother in the kitchen talking to her son. She obviously just made him lunch. He's got some kind of a sandwich in his hand. It's got lettuce and meat sticking out of it. And he says, "I wanted a peanut butter sandwich for lunch today." And the mother replies, "I like the way you told me that. You made your point and there was no blame." Again, she didn't put a different label on him or a new role for him to play, but she complimented the way that he said it, not as a complainer, but as a stater of a fact and what he thought about that. He didn't get the peanut butter and jelly sandwich that he wanted, but he didn't blame anybody for it. He just simply stated it, and the mother affirmed that. So giving your child an opportunity to see a new picture of himself or herself. Here's another example. Mother talking to her daughter, who may have been labeled slow or been given this role by family members or others that they were slow poke. And the mother says, "I was just about to call the refrigerator repairman when you figured out that the plug was loose. How did you ever think of that?" So looking for opportunities for the child to see, hey, there are things they can do. There are things they can think of. There are things they notice when others don't, to help remove this negative label or this negative role that they've been put into. Here's another example of a father talking to his daughter. He said, "With everything else on your mind, you remember to check the lost and found for your gloves. That's taking responsibility." So the child comes home with the gloves that she had lost at school. And instead of being labeled undependable, which had been the previous case, now the father gives her an opportunity to see herself as taking responsibility, as being responsible. So giving our children a different picture of themselves is important for freeing them from the negative labels and the roles that they've been assigned by others. Real quickly, here's another one today. Put children in situations where they can see themselves differently. So maybe the child has seen themselves as mischievous. Well, here's an example. The mother says to the son who's got the dog next to him, Jimmy, I won't be home this afternoon, so I'm putting you in charge of feeding and walking the dog. So giving that child a situation where they can see themselves as being responsible. Uh, Maybe the child is used to seeing themselves as scatterbrained. And this next example is the mother talking to her child saying, we need 2 quarts of milk. Do you think it's safer to carry the money in your wallet or in your pocket? So again, if they've had this label or this role of being scatterbrained, now's an opportunity to help them see that they can be focused and they can be responsible. Basically, when we put them in situations where they can see themselves differently. Or here's another example, a child maybe who's typically seen as clumsy and all thumbs. The father says to his daughter about putting together this dresser, and he says, Sarah, would you take the screwdriver and tighten the pulls on these drawers? So even though she may have seen herself as clumsy and all thumbs, now she has an opportunity to see herself differently because dad is asking for her help. Or another example where a father is talking to his son, where there are friends together playing a game there in the same room. And whereas the son may have previously taken on the role or adapted the label of being greedy, the father says, Tommy, please divide this bag of peanuts so that each person gets a fair share. Putting him in a situation where he can practice being generous instead of being greedy. So we'll talk about some other ways to free our children from roles and labels on the next edition of Parenting Matters with McCracken.